All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. Again, my name is Tom Lyons. I'm a senior engineer and subject matter expert with Inflow Communications. I'll be taking you through the webinar today. I have over 6 years of unified communications experience on the Genesys Cloud platform, as well as RingCentral and the Mitel system. A little bit about Inflow Communications before we get started. Inflow does have a sole focus on unified communications and contact center solutions. What that means is we don't branch into other facets of technology such as networking equipment. We do keep it simple and focus on the voice aspect. As a result, when you get in contact with us for any assistance with your voice system, you're going to be connected with somebody who's well-rooted and well-informed on your gear, and will be able to get you pointed in the right direction. We are a platinum partner with Mitel, as well as partnered with RingCentral, and we are a Genesys Gold partner as well. We do have offices and employees across the United States, and we currently service over 200,000 endpoints and over 800 customers nationwide, and in many cases worldwide. And we are maniacal about the customer experience. What I mean by that is we want to make sure you get all the information that you require and then some for your system to make sure that it's running as smoothly and seamlessly as possible for your business. Couple of upcoming webinars that we have here for you. In a couple days here on the 16th, we do have another webinar on Mitel server capabilities and limitations. So if you are running a Mitel environment, that would be a good one to check out and see what you can and can't do with those servers in the Mitel infrastructure. And on the 21st, we also do have a webinar for working at home with RingCentral. So if you're looking at anything involving RingCentral, that may be a good webinar to see what the capabilities are, to see if it would be a good fit for you. Here's a quick snippet of the customers that we support. And as always, if you have any questions, there is a question box in the GoToWebinar application that you can use to submit those. I will answer those at the end of the webinar. If there's anything that I can't answer directly, I will make sure to get you that information via email at the end of the webinar as well. And so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drop out of that and move over to my PureCloud admin page. And what we're going to do today is we're going to go over some very basic expressions that you can do in PureCloud, specifically in Architect. When I talk about expressions, what I'm talking about is a way to pull certain bits of data, store them in a variable, and then use them elsewhere so that you can alter your call flow depending on who's calling or what you want to do with that information, so that you are able to make your call flow do what you want for who you want. And in particular today, I'm going to show you a couple of basic tricks in terms of how to set up things like maybe a way to drop spam callers if you know a certain spam number that's been calling in, or ways to alter how callbacks will work in the system as well. So that's what we are going to focus on today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on Architect here from the admin page. When I do this, it is going to open a new tab. And when I get to this tab, if you haven't seen this before, there are a whole bunch of different flows that you can set up in the system here. It does default to the inbound call flow, which is actually going to be how the calls are processed when they first enter the system. There are also a few different other flows. In particular, the one that we'll be focusing on today is the Enqueue call flow, which is what is being used when the call is actually entered the system and the person is waiting for an agent to pick up their call and interact with them. What we're going to focus on today at the beginning here is the inbound call flow, and I'm going to show you a couple things that you can do with some of these expressions. To do so, I'm going to go ahead and click on this Transfer to Support menu down here, which you will see is a very basic starting task here. This is actually what many of you have probably seen in Architect before. And what this is this is going to allow you to choose and select how you want certain calls handled. So in this particular case, anything that hits this inbound call flow is immediately getting transferred to our training support queue. And you can see here, if I click in here and I look at the Enqueue call flow, there's also a webinar training Enqueue flow that's used for these calls. So it's a very, very basic way to get into the system. This is for the calls that have initially just landed on Genesys Cloud. So this is the initial transfer in. There's a few things that we can do before this to make this a little bit more complex, but maybe suit your needs a little bit more. And what we're going to focus on today is just how to differentiate specific calls with a couple of different variables that we can set up here and allow it to actually change how the call flow is happening. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and click on edit, because we're going to need to go in here and actually edit here. And the goal here is going to be, let's go ahead and check and see if this is a specific user that's calling in. And if it is, we're going to manipulate the call a little bit differently. So to look at this from a quick top-down standpoint before we get started on that, you'll see here on the transfer to ACD, currently it is just a quick transfer into that training support queue. There's no priority attached, so this is just going to be a default call. And there's nothing else that's associated with it, such as an ACD skill. In this particular case, we're going to go ahead and make some changes to this one so that we can then prioritize certain callers to get through faster to the front of the line, basically a priority line, without having to give them a different phone number. So it's a nice way to consolidate that and not have to worry about having multiple queues set up with multiple phone numbers attached. You can do it all in one flow as long as you know how to store these variables and use them. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to grab a logic here down at the on the left side here under logic, and I'm going to grab decision. Decision is going to let me look at something and decide yes or no whether or not I want to do something. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this decision. I'm going to drag it up to the top, and it's very important to actually land on the line in between start and the first piece. You'll see that that has put a decision in the middle here. And I've got a yes and a no. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to move this transfer to ACD to the no. So this is without actually setting up any variables. I'm telling the system, if this does not match, I want you to follow the method that we are trying to use already, which is going to be a simple transfer to ACD. You can actually do anything here. You could set it up for a specific line where if you don't call from a specific number, it drops the call or transfers elsewhere. This is just going to be for ease of simplicity for the webinar here. In the decision, though, you'll see that we can change the name just like any variable. What I'm going to do is call this number match. And you'll see it's looking for an expression, true or false. That's not going to fit what we're looking for here, because true or false is not going to actually give us a hit for what we're looking for. If I click on this little note drop down on the right side, you'll notice that I can change that from literal, which is the true or false, to an expression, or I can use what's called the Boolean builder to start an expression. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually click on the Boolean builder. And you'll see that it wants me to add an expression in here. So I can click the expression here. And this is going to be an expression that needs to be in Boolean format. Now, the thing that's nice about Genesys Cloud is if you start typing in information, it will actually pop up data variables that the system automatically processes that will allow you to make these variables a lot easier. So here, you can actually see the one that I'm looking for right off the bat, this call Annie, and it gives you an idea of what it is. The caller's origination phone number for the active call. Annie stands for automatic number identification. And what this essentially means is this is the number that the user called in on. It's going to check that number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on call Annie here. And then what we need here to make this work is we actually need 2 equal signs. Then we need a quote, and we need a phone number. And then an end quote. At this point, if the call Annie matched this number with the leading +1 in front, so that 503 number there, this would then return a result of true from the decision. Now you can do this with multiple expressions. So if I wanted to add another expression here, I could actually add another one here. So do another one here, maybe a different number. And that would give me what I need here. But you'll notice it shows and if I do that. So this is a way that you can actually add multiples as well. I'm going to go ahead and convert to a custom expression. And it's going to open it up so that I can change this. And I'm going to change an and just to or and hit close. And what you'll see in here is you'll actually see the first call Annie, which is that first 503 number, or the second call Annie, which is the second 503 number. What this is now looking for is, does this call Annie or the person that called in, does their phone number match either of these two candidates? If it does, it's going to follow the yes path for the decision now. If it doesn't, it's going to follow the no path. So what we could potentially do for a situation like this is you could set this up as somewhat of a priority line, and we could just go through and basically duplicate what we're doing here with the transfer to ACD. So I'll just copy this here. I'll paste it here, and you'll see it looks pretty much the same. But in this particular case, we've got a number match. If the number does match, it'll go through to the yes side. And now we can uptick the priority on the yes side so that these calls get treated with a higher priority than calls that would not actually match that number. So this gives you a way to set up a priority queue so that you can move callers along faster for those higher volume customers that you have. This is one way to do that. Conversely, what you could do is, if these numbers were spam callers, and you know that, so maybe you're getting 10 to 15 calls a day from one particular number, it doesn't match up with anybody else that you should be talking to, and they're either belligerent or they're hanging up the phone on you. You could use this to drop the calls as well. So instead of doing a transfer to ACD, so I'll go ahead and disconnect that. If these numbers match, then what you could do is you could do something like play an audio file that just says, sorry, your call cannot be completed. And then you could just let it flow to the end of the flow, which is going to be disconnect. At this point, those numbers would not be able to reach your queue. However, anybody else would be able to. So you could use this as kind of a makeshift call drop destination also. So what we'll do is we'll keep this in play here, and we're going to go ahead and publish this. And once published, that number match is now in play on that inbound call flow. So at this point, you can see that the flow is no longer open for edit. It is able to look for those two phone numbers. And then if it finds a match, in this particular case, it's going to play a text-to-speech file saying, sorry, your call can't be completed. And then it's going to go ahead and disconnect the call. Otherwise, it's going to transfer to ACD unless there's an issue with that transfer, at which point it will disconnect the call. Now, remember, we just talked about the Enqueue flow as well. If you're familiar with Architect, you've probably seen these before, but now that the transfer is in place, if somebody does get there, the Enqueue flow is going to be a part of this. So we're going to go ahead and go back to Architect, and we're going to now switch this drop down to Enqueue call. And we know this one is the webinar training Enqueue flow, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this guy. And we're going to talk a little bit about some things that we can do in here as well. So this one is very, very simple. To explain what we're looking at, I will go ahead and open it up for edit so that we can see it a little bit easier. There we go. But we have a couple of loops set up here. The inner loop loops 3 times. And you can see here it plays hold music for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Then just plays a simple audio file that says, thank you for your patience. At which point the loop restarts, and it does it a total of 3 times. Then this loop, this overall loop, gets handled 3 times, at which point, after the 9 total loops have occurred, you'll get an audio file that just says, please try again later, thank you, and we'll then get rid of the call. Or actually, in this case, we actually do need to disconnect here, so it would get rid of the call with the disconnect option there. This isn't what we want to do. What we want to do is we want to either force callback or force to voicemail. So what we are going to do is we're going to set up a callback in the middle of this, and then I'm going to show you a couple ways that we can actually change what we would do for that callback. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to say we want to have a callback option off of this menu here. What we're going to do is we're going to click on data, and we're going to go ahead and grab a collect input, and we're going to put this down under that last loop. So when it exits the big loop, it's going to give them the option. And then this particular in this particular case, we're going to give them the option to either press 1 for a callback or press 0 or I'm sorry, or press nothing and it's going to hang up the phone, is how we're going to do this. So I'm going to enter a data name here. This is going to become important as we go through here. Caller input, we'll call it task.caller input. And what we're looking for is any range of digits. And we're going to give it an exact number of 1 digit with no verification, and we'll leave everything else the same. Now you'll note it does not look for a specific number here. It's just asking you to input a digit. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. And how that works for the collect input is any digit that's pressed will return a success here. It's going to be up to the variable or the task caller input to then be used to say, okay, well, we got input. Is this the input that we're looking for? Failure is going to be the failure to collect any input. So after 5 seconds, this would go to the failure option, which you can see here from the no entry timeout. So once we get this information, and this would be something like press 1 for a callback, or remain on the line. And at this point, if they pressed 1, we need to use some information from that, which is where another decision will come into play. So I'm going to go ahead and click on logical here, and I'm going to click on decision. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on expression here, and I'm going to say task.caller input equals 1. So what this is looking for is when we got a button press, did we actually get a button press of 1? If we did, then we can set up a callback action. Otherwise, we can let this just go down to the please try again later, which is going to allow it to just go back and tell them, hey, we're busy, please try again later, and disconnect the call in this case, which is how we're going to leave that piece. But if we do get a 1, it's going to follow the yes variable. So at this point, we'll go ahead and set up a callback. So what we'll do, let's see. There we are, flow create callback. And you'll notice that there is a callback number, which will automatically go ahead and get you a the call Annie of the caller that called in. So it'll automatically grab the number that they had called in from, and it will set up the callback there. And you'll notice here in the queue, callback will be placed in the current queue. So you can see all of that information here. But what if we have a caller that doesn't want their callback at the same number that they called in on? We can set that up as well. We just need another variable before it. So what we're going to do here is after that decision collect input, we're going to actually put in another collect input just above the callback here. And what we'll do is we will ask them for any number of digits between 10 and 11, because we want to make sure that we can capture their number whether or not they add the 1 in front of the area code. And so what we're going to call this is callback number. Make it nice and easy. So that'll turn into task callback number. And what we'll do is a couple different things. We will, for the success, if we get a number that is in that range, then what we are going to do is actually set up another callback in the success, which will then use task callback number for the callback number. So now that they've entered a phone number to be reached at, we can use that phone number instead of the phone number that's being used for the call that's currently in progress, in case we do have to call them back at a different number. So if somebody's calling in from their business line, but they want to call back on their cell just in case they're not going to be at their desk, this is a way to handle that. So at this point, we have a 10 or 11 digit number. We've had success there. And because of that success, we can then say, okay, we're going to use that number. If we keep this the way that it is, then at this point, that callback is completed. We'll actually want to put a disconnect at the bottom there so it doesn't then continue down the flow at that point. At that point, what we have now to go ahead and we will save this so we can make it a little bit easier to see. And we'll talk about it here. So we'll publish it to make it a little bit easier to see. There we go. So we have that first loop that's going to encompass all of the hold music and the thank you for your patience prompt. After the third big loop, so after 9 loops of this, they're going to get a collect input that's going to ask them to press 1 for a callback or remain on the line. If they press any number, it's going to go through the success option, which is going to then check to see if that task that we had set up on the collect input, because remember we called this task.caller input, it's looking to see if task.caller input is set to 1, which would be based on their button press. If it is, it's going to follow the yes path, which is going to be the collect input for the callback number. And if it doesn't, it's going to then go all the way down the no and say, please try again later, thank you. If they do put in a callback number of 10 or 11 digits, which you can see based on the range of digits on the right side, once they follow the yes, then it's going to follow the success pattern here, and it's going to create a callback based on the callback number that we have saved in that task.callback number. So this can be a different number from the one that is normally used. If they do not put in a number, the good news is we actually have a fallback for that here, which is going to be creating the callback using the phone number that they called in on. So it's kind of a catch-all in this scenario. It allows you to still actually grab that callback. And I did notice one other thing that we need to do in that particular case. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to edit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more disconnect under that second callback option right there. And the reason for that is if we don't put that there, then it's actually going to continue down the flow, play the audio that says, please try again later. And that will confuse the customers. So this will actually allow the callback to be set up even if they don't enter a callback number, and will allow the callback to happen and the disconnect to happen before that message is played. So this is just a nice and simple way, like I was talking about, to use expressions in Genesys Cloud. There are quite a few different things you can do with this and quite a few different variables that are available. So if you do have a specific use case you're looking for, I would highly recommend reaching out to us to see if it's something that can be done. Each use case is going to be highly dependent on what is set up and available, as well as the specific use case. So not every one variable can be cookie cutter, but we can certainly help you find the way to do what you want to do. And with that, that is our webinar for today. As I noted, if you do have any questions, there is a questions box that you can use in the GoToWebinar application. I'm going to go ahead and wait for just a minute to see if anything pops up here. All right, it looks like we're good there. So if you do have any other questions come up after the webinar, that's okay too. In case you do need to reach out to us or are curious about how to, here's our current customer resources. If you want to reach out to us via email, you can do so at support@inflowcommunications.com. These emails are answered in the order they are received, so I would not recommend using this for any urgent correspondence. This is best for any information you need or any low-hanging fruit that you're just looking for some answers on. You can also look at all of the tickets that you've opened with us at support.inflowcommunications.com for our support portal. Now, if you've not used this one before, you do want to send us an email or give us a call first, because there is some back-end information we have to get set up in order to make it work. This will allow you to look at all of the tickets that you've created with Inflow Communications, look at the status. You can reply to the tickets from the portal as well. And if you are the main contact for your system, we can set it up so that you can see all the tickets that your organization has opened with Inflow also. And then finally, you can reach us on the phone at 855-946-3569 or 855-9-INFLOW. We have a 3-ring answer policy, so you won't be on hold for 10 to 15 minutes waiting to get in touch with somebody. And when you do, you're going to be directly connected with a voice engineer that will be able to assist you. For more information on Inflow support packages, you can send us an email at sales@inflowcommunications.com, or you can call us as well at 844-446-3569. And again, on behalf of Inflow Communications, my name is Tom. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today for our webinar on Genesys Cloud. We do hope to see you in the future. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks, guys.